Hit the one that's not ready.
Back on the horse. All right, sounds good. All right, I'd like to call this March IT meeting to order. We do have a quorum. We have Supervisor Hicks and Supervisor Wilson are on Zoom, so we do have a quorum. First order of business is to accept the minutes from the February 22nd, 2022 meeting. So moved by Supervisor Fessler, second by Sue Cleary. Any amendments to that? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries. County Attorney Roger with cybersecurity report.
I don't think Mr. Hicks wanted to adopt it.
Yeah.
All right, so you have two documents there for the cybersecurity report today. One is the standard traffic, I'll call it traffic analysis of what's been going through in terms of statistics and security statistics. 911 centers, you'll see on their items of interest, have become a new target. And I know Karen's on heightened alert because of what's going on over in Europe in terms of they've seen an increase in cybersecurity activity because of what's going on in Ukraine and with the Russians. Nothing we can point to particularly in our neck of the woods, but certainly the organizations that monitor that kind of thing are on track and on heightened alert. And the other thing I provided for you was a sheet called Cybersecurity Highlights. Kind of shows you what we've been doing for the last, 4 years, pretty much since we started the department. The board started the department. You can see Karen's been doing a lot of writing. She's serving on a lot of committees and boards, networking quite a bit. You know, she was invited to go out to Denver by the state a year or two ago. She's going to another national conference this year. She's on a couple of panels as well. So we're really becoming, I think, one of the leaders in this. We brought in about $150,000 in grants for our IT department, our cybersecurity posture. Greatly helped us as well. So I think it's useful every once in a while to sit down and kind of write out your accomplishments because they happen one at a time and you tend to forget, all the things that you've done over the years. So I asked her to put this together just so you can see it. I think it's something we should be really proud of, and I think she's somebody we should be really proud of because she's really taken to the job and has done quite a bit, all the way from talking to senior citizens about their, cybersecurity hygiene at home up to national organizations. So I think when we took this recommendation, I've said this before, when we took the recommendation to start this position, it's probably one of the smartest IT moves we've ever made. And if there aren't any other questions about that.
Just a statement, Roger. Go ahead. We've been, and for the rest of you guys, we've been experiencing quite a spat of emails coming into our town clerk requesting changes in our direct deposit for employees. Right. The past week we've had several, and they're all, funky email addresses. Not hard to figure out, but.
So I got one yesterday from my highway superintendent, and I didn't get a chance to talk to him yet today. But his message was, in the message in the email, is it too late to change the direct deposit?
I was just going to say that the key term is it's too late to change the direct deposit for this time period.
Right. So
and every one of us had the same thing. So.
And Al will tell you we had a spate of those going through, and then Melissa just asked somebody in DMV to buy her some gift cards the other day too, allegedly. So didn't take them long to switch over from Chris to Melissa because Chris was allegedly sending those same kind of emails out to various people. This one though was for doctors and nurses, so that probably made it much more legitimate than just regular old people. But
I've got some from the highway guys. We don't do direct deposit.
Yeah, so it's everything old is new again. It comes around every couple of years. But Al got a couple of them. And it was good that we had some eagle-eyed people that spotted the problem before we got too far down the road. So, and one of them was very legitimate because the employee was deployed. So it kind of made sense to, when it first came in, it looked like it kind of made sense. But the thing to do is to talk to a person. Not an email. Right. You'll often find pretty quickly that that's the problem. Or there's an artificial sense of urgency. That email allegedly came from Melissa. It wasn't Melissa. It said, I'm in a meeting right now and I need you to urgently do this. But the employee in DMV rightfully said that doesn't sound right to me. So I think we're making progress in our education too. And we're gonna keep doing that. We're working on getting the employees. We still got a couple that need to take the security training.
I was just gonna ask that, at the risk of calling out supervisors who haven't taken the cybersecurity training, Deb, can you double check on that? And then just, I think the last time we sent something out was.
Actually, Karen sent something out late last week or the beginning of this week.
I'm not tagged on it anymore.
I'm just saying that email did go out not too long ago.
Yes, Dan.
I do not use a county domain on my email, so I have not taken the training. And I know a while back I asked if my email address could be deleted, county. If, the county domain email address, because I never ever used it, and I was told that's almost impossible to do. So, get an email from DHAP, Washington County. It's not me.
But the training also helps it's not just for the Washington County email. It's a generalized training so that everybody understands these are things to look for. Yeah. A lot of it's common sense, but we know that's not a flower that blooms in our county all the time.
There's two parts to it.
Yeah.
I thought I was done.
All right. Any other questions for Roger? All right. Moving on to projects and updates, and Terry McNeil. Hi, Terry.
Hi, good morning. This might be a great time. I don't want to mix up our agenda items a little bit, but maybe to segue in, since we were talking about cybersecurity training, into that item on the agenda, if you don't mind.
Yep. Go right ahead.
So just so you know, Dana, your email address has been deleted. It hasn't been there for a long time. So we don't have one on there for you, just so you know. If you do want to take the cybersecurity training though, we certainly could use that or send that out to you through your other email address. So just keep that in mind. That's actually what we wanted to talk about, is that Karen and Roger and I have talked a bit in conversation with some of the other town supervisors about the possible interest in cybersecurity training and being able to provide that from a county level as a shared service. So I wanted to offer that out. The cybersecurity training really comes in two sections. One section of it is the training itself, being able to go through a 30-minute training we've offered to all of the county employees, and then be able to refresh that on a yearly basis. So that's one piece of it I think is very valuable, not only in your business and professional lives, but also in people's personal lives, because it helps to really identify phishing emails and those type of things. The second piece of the cybersecurity training that we could potentially have the ability to offer, depending on domain setups, is the phishing piece, right? So it's great to train, but if you don't test, then you don't really have a good indication of how valuable the training is. And so the phishing piece is a test. However, we're not able to phish like Gmail addresses, Yahoo addresses, those type of things. It has to be through your specific domain, because we have to be able to whitelist the servers that the phishing emails are coming from to ensure that they will in fact be delivered to people's inboxes. So that is part of the service that we certainly can offer. We just so you're all aware, though, we're not able to do that if you don't have your own domain set up, say in 365 or someplace like that. 365 or potentially Google could work as well, but to have your own domain. So I don't know if there's questions on that. Roger, if you had anything else you might want to add, or.
Our paths cross more than you would think between our systems. And so if your system talks to our system, your system's a vulnerability. So it's in the county's best interest to help you lock your doors so that somebody doesn't come in through you to get to us. And I think that's a great way to do shared services. We're trying to do it with the community too, but any place that we share data, anytime you're sending us a file, anytime you're doing something like that, it has a potential. And the security training, like Mr. Griffith said, works for everything. So even if your people don't have an email address, but they're dealing with things at the town and they're opening emails at the town, if they're using, I'm going to shudder here a little bit, their own personal emails to do business at your town, it's something that they should be taking a look at, because your system couldn't go down just as easily from ransomware or just a lockup or something malicious. So we're trying to, since we realize the overlap is there and it's probably only going to get bigger, we're trying to increase that sharing with the localities and the other people that connect with us, and I think that's a perfect shared services.
thing, because having one master plan is the best way to do it.
So I have a question on overlap. So if you're using a personal device.
Right.
And you go onto social media networks, you know, or for instance, Instant Messenger on Facebook, is there a possibility there of overlap through that, you know, data service?
I'm pointing at Terry,
Yeah.
so she can tell you how it overlaps.
So what do you mean overlap?
So if I was, and I know I've received Facebook instant messages from people that aren't the real people, but can you, using other social media forms that have communicative paths, can that be a way in which cybersecurity can be breached?
Absolutely. Yeah, so that's one of the reasons that you'll notice on county networks, unless there's a specific request for it, we don't allow social media sites like Facebook, Twitter, and those type of things in general, because I could log into a county computer, for example, log into my Facebook account, check Messenger, have a bad message in there, click on it, and infect the whole county network. So absolutely things can come through there because there are malicious links sent through Messenger and a lot of hacked accounts on Facebook and Twitter and those type of things.
And my point there is that, you know, we're doing a good job at the county, but at our town offices, it might be less of an awareness from those individuals that work at the town office in regards to, you know, going on their Facebook account right on the office computer, and then, you know, Messenger as well, or, you know, whatever social media platform they're using, and could backdoor into the county as well as the town. So
it definitely can, and kind of as an overall policy. I mean, that's where I think policies for towns come into use, where you have an acceptable use policy for government or town, or, you know, corporate owned devices, if you will. And one of those things, you know, should say, you're not allowed to check your personal email, no personal business is conducted. You know, people can bring a phone to work, and maybe you provide them a guest Wi-Fi they can connect to. That way they're not disconnected. They still have the ability to connect. They still have the ability to take their lunch break and, you know, do what they need to do, but not take the risk of doing it on the actual town computer, you know, or county computer. That would be my suggestion on that.
anybody else have any questions in regards to the shared services for cybersecurity? All right. Good stuff. Thanks, Terry.
Jim?
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Sue. Yep.
I'm sorry, Terry, many of us have, like, Town of Salem has a Facebook page. Okay, so would that be allowed, or should that not be on the county device?
Well, if that is a town page, then I think it's acceptable to, you know, go ahead and allow town business to be conducted. It's more the personal things you don't have control over. And I think that's really where the training comes in, right? Because whoever is managing that page really should be aware, you know, of the risks that are out there, that messages could come in. But social media is an important tool these days. I think it's important for everybody to stay active in social media, to be able to connect with your constituents and such, in the local government and businesses. I think it's important. I think many things IT related are important. It's just learning how to do them safely.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Sue. Anybody else have any questions? Go ahead, Matt.
Well, now that we found out that Dana's email has been deleted from the county server, is the takeaway from the meeting that Dana Half's been canceled? Is cancel culture rampant? Is it flowed over into Hartford? Is that what we take away from this? I'm just stunned.
Supervisor Hicks, are you trying to add more time to the IT committee?
Terminated.
I was just waiting for a rebuttal. That's all.
I appreciate your concern, Matt.
You're welcome, Dana. Just worrying about you.
Thank you.
I think we have to be careful what we say in this, because this is online Zoom, and we don't want to tell potential hackers our weak point.
Right. That's why we don't discuss hardware, we don't discuss software. We discuss concepts, and I've said to you before, I don't want to sound like I'm bragging, because that just sticking your head up there is like an opportunity for somebody to say, well, I'll show them that they're not as good as they think they are. So, you know, it's an evolving battle. It's something you just have to be careful and conscious of when you get an email. Make sure it's from the right place. Look at the address. It's something we don't normally do, but after the training and after you've had a couple of these things, becomes a little bit more real to you. And we see the success in the fact that the employees are reporting these things. We have a fish button, and they come into Karen, and we actually had a legitimate one from Terry the other day about one of the programs we used, and we got 4 reports on it because people weren't expecting it, and they wanted to make sure it was real. So, you know, I think that's the thing you want to see is people have a healthy suspicion of things that they're doing, or at least make sure they're taking a look at it before they just click.
All it takes is one time making a mistake, and
Right.
you'll never make that same mistake again. Go ahead, Dana.
A few years ago, the town of Hartford was audited by the comptroller. Thankfully, they didn't really find anything wrong, so they went into cybersecurity. And everybody can improve cybersecurity. So we did quite a few things, especially related to the automated clearinghouse, where when you do payments and everything goes through automated clearinghouse, safeguards that.
Yeah.
A computer that we use to do all of our banking is not connected to any social media at all. It's just online for banking. That way, that computer is protected from anybody sending an attachment, social media, an email, whatever. Nothing goes to that computer. Like the old-fashioned red phone, you know, that the president used to have to just connect it strictly to the internet, strictly for the bank.
And Terry alluded to it too, is the privatization of your connectivity. So you shouldn't have an open network for people to be able to come into town hall and be able to log on to. You can't have a guest network, but you should have a difference of the two so that people can't get into your privatized network for town business.
If you're getting cybersecurity insurance, you get a questionnaire every year from your insurer, from NYMER in our case, saying, here's what we want to know about your system. And every year that changes, or there's 10 more questions in reaction to problems that insurers have had to deal with the previous year. So we have the insurance, but we've actually learned a lot about our operation just having to go through these checklists. It's fairly expensive, but it's also, if you lose your network, like if we lost our network, especially some of the financial things and other things that we do, we'd have serious problems. But it's constantly evolving. You know, we said, oh, when we get our renewal, we'll be all set. No, here's 10 more things we want to make sure you're doing. Unfortunately, we're doing them, but it's amazing how it shifts and changes. And Mr. Griffith said, you know, we have to be right all the time. They only have to be right. They only have to get in once. And they can go through 15 zillion systems with one email. And we have to make sure we fish that, no pun intended, you know, find that little arrow that's coming at us in the midst of all the other things that come through, as you can see by what we get. So it's a battle.
We met with our town fiduciary representative last week, and you know, what she had stated is that what's old is new again, and forgery right now, checks are the most forged things that are out there right now. So getting that, you know, that routing number and that check account number, and then they're doing a bait and switch on you, and they're getting you to send money, and then all of a sudden the dispute comes, but they've got their money and you're out, you know, could be a couple $1,000, in some cases could be much more than that. So that was something interesting that our representative had told us last week. So be aware of that.
Yeah, and security, I liken to an onion. It's about layers, right? There isn't any one product that anybody can buy and say, we're going to buy this product. We're never going to have a problem. We're never going to receive spam email. You know, it just doesn't work that way. And so it's about a lot of layers, having those layers in place, you know, all the way from spam filtering. But the human firewall is your biggest vulnerability most times. So having the knowledge around that the training provides, I think, is very important.
Sue, go ahead.
How do we go forward to have the thought of it going through shared service for a shared service grant? Is there something we need to do, or is it something that?
So I would say it's not.
At?
Yeah, it's not a grant. It's a product we already have in place. Yeah. We already have some licensing that I think we can allocate at this point to be able to start offering that. So I would say, Roger, unless you have another thought, I would say to send an email to myself and Karen or Roger, if you'd like, and just let us know your interest, and then we'll reach out directly to you and see about getting you set up.
Thank you.
We're taking a look at where we intersect, Sue. So so that we can see, you know, where the open doors and the ports are, and then we can try to help work through with you as to what we can, change. But if you're interested in getting to the head of the line or beta testing the operation or whatever, you'll let us know, and we'll certainly come down and see what we can do for you. Karen would be happy to do a consultation anytime. She'll also do training for your town folks if you want it.
Thank you. Thanks, Darren.
Matt, you had a question?
Yeah, so my takeaway is that if I get an email from an address I don't recognize and it starts out, "Dear Comrade," I should probably delete that.
He's here all week, folks. Try the deal.
Worst is very good today.
All right, excellent. Any other questions for Terry in regards to the shared services? All right, let's move on to the project updates. You received that in your email from Deb yesterday.
Yep, so you should have the project updates as well as the ticketing report. Does anybody have any questions on either of those?
Like we're on pace for you know all the current projects we have in place, and then we've got a couple of new projects that are starting up here.
Yep, that's correct. We are set to go live on Friday. I don't want to steal John's thunder here because he has been putting so much work into this new code software that I would give him and his team a big kudos, because they have put a lot of time and a lot of effort over the last few months into the new code application, and that's scheduled to go live on Friday. So I thought I would mention that. I think it's really great. And we're just starting to work. We just had a kickoff call last week with the new probation software. So we're moving that forward as well. We've got a lot of things kind of in the hopper that you'll start to see show up on the project list as well as we keep checking some things off. One thing I did want to mention from a project perspective that we did complete this past month was the mobile device management platform for the county. So we have rolled it out to a couple of departments, but we're looking to start rolling it out countywide. And I just wanted to bring it up to the committee. I don't think we need, you know, approvals or anything like that per se. But I just wanted everybody to be aware that I think it's a really great policy, and it's going to allow us to bring security and asset management into the mobile device world that we haven't had previously. And so I don't know if anybody had any questions on that, but I just wanted to let you all know that we will be rolling that out countywide over the next few months.
So is that on mobile devices that are distributed by the county?
Yes. Yep. Strictly county-owned devices. You know, would not be laptops or anything that runs a Windows operating system. So anything that does not run Windows. So mobile phones, iPads.
iOS.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Apple or Android.
Any questions on any of the projects that Terry just talked about? Very nice. And and on the ticketing reporting. Any highlights there from the ticketing reporting, Terry?
I think the only highlight maybe would be the amount of time that's gone to code over the last month. So that was for February. You can see that the code percentage, which is typically very low, has shot up quite a bit. We put quite a bit of time into it as well.
Yeah.
But John has really been the driver of that. Just a big kudos to John on that. I think it's really great. They wouldn't be where they are today if he hadn't, without his effort and his energy towards this.
Can you give a little bit more detail on what that's going to entail and save in regards to code enforcement for them? In terms of time?
Not really. I think that would be a good question for John, who would be on, because we are involved in the technical side of it, but I won't be using the software every day. So I really can't speak to how it affects their processes or those type of things.
Okay. Thanks, Terry. Anybody else have any questions? Any other questions for Terry at this time?
I have one other thing.
Go right ahead, Terry.
The one other thing I just wanted to bring up, I actually have been working with a few different towns and gone to board meetings and spoken to some people, and I would just offer that service back up again. But I know one thing I'd mentioned in the past board meeting is that committee meeting is that I was going to put together like a little cheat sheet just to maybe spur some conversation. So I do have my first draft of that put together. And I'd like to send out an email to all supervisors just to offer it up as a conversation piece. It's really just a bulleted one pager that goes through the different areas of technology. And so whether it's something, you know, that you'd like to talk to me about in more depth, or whether it's something you talk to your IT provider about, or kind of use as a guide, but it really gives kind of a whole picture of what type of conversations to have with IT providers for town networks. So I thought I would hoping anyway that it would be helpful to everybody, just to kind of have some things that maybe you hadn't thought about before. So I didn't send that in the meeting, but I will put that together and possibly just ask Debbie to send out a list to all the town supervisors so that they have it for reference, and feel free to reach out to me with anything regarding that.
Sue, go right ahead.
Terry, I want to thank you. You did coming to the town of Salem. It's generated a lot of conversation, and conversation that we haven't necessarily had before. And so I really appreciate the time you spent coming and reviewing and giving us a list of things to look for, things that we had never considered before. So not having an IT specialist, not having that person in our budget, this was a eye opener. So thank you very, very much. And I think all the town should, should call on you. So thanks, Terry.
Well, thank you, Sue. It was my pleasure.
Thank you very much, Terry. And again, if there's any response or more understanding needs to happen, just reach out to you directly after Deb sent that email around.
Yeah, because again, it's really just meant to be kind of a conversation starter. It's a one pager with bullets. Doesn't have a ton of detailed information, but I'd be happy to go, you know, answer questions in more detail or talk about things in more detail if anybody would like to, either on a one-to-one basis or, you know, through a board meeting, whatever you prefer.
Good. Thank you very
or
much.
with an
Terry.
IT provider.
Anybody have any other questions for Terry? All right. Thank you very much, Terry.
Thank you all.
Any other business to come before the IT committee this month? All right. With that being said, I adjourn the IT committee for the month of March. Thank you. And we're going right into government ops. Okay. All right.
Not that I'm a lot shorter than you, Jim, but I don't show it. So I did that where you were at nothing.
Well, there's no way to lock that door.
Yeah.
So you know everything.
We feel so good. I want to
Supervisor, the fees off, it'd be locked. Nobody knows. We don't really do that.
Okay, we're all set, so I'll call the meeting of government ops to order. First up is to accept the minutes from February 22nd. Anybody would like to make a motion on that?
Motion.
Moved by Tim, seconded by Darrell. Any further discussion, questions, additions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. First up is Laura Chadwick.
Hi, Cassie. Thank you, everybody. I just wanted to let everybody know that they should have in their mailbox my annual report. If you haven't received it yet, it's a little blue binder. Please read through it. If you have any questions as a result of that annual report, feel free to get a hold of me. It's pretty much the same year after year. Not a lot of exciting things going on in the world of real property, except for multiple town assessment equity update, which is coming to an end here real soon. GAR is meeting with the representatives from constituents in the towns that are involved, and that's coming to a close. The other thing I had on the agenda that I wanted to bring up was we will be receiving some updated aerial photography as a result of Warren County getting into a contract to update their aerial photography. Their planning department, Sarah Frankenfeld over there, is contacted us saying we will receive some new aerial photos. We just updated our, or in the process, thanks to Terry's staff, also of updating our GIS website. And with our new GIS website, you will be able to see different layers of aerial photography throughout the years. The new layer that is going to get flown this fall won't be available till 2023, just because of that's how the timing works with that. And it may not be to the fall of 2023, but you know, our new website, either through the GIS .washingtoncountyny.gov or by going into our ImageMate and pinning the property, the new website will show you different layers throughout time. It's a work in progress. We're learning some of the different things in the website. We're going to do a little meeting with the assessors after grievance day. I know Dave O'Brien, he's not in the meeting today. He's a big user of our GIS website, and he's been working in there looking at things. I also want to thank Code with their new code enforcement with their new application that they're using. They also allow my data collector to log on to their website. She's been doing some training with the code enforcement people, and this is a much better program than what they had before. A lot easier to use as far as our end goes. We're able to access more documentation and things like that.
Dana Haff, you had a question?
I have a question about aerial photography.
Yes, Dana.
Talk about an actual airplane flying over like they used to do in the old days. Is that a bit old fashioned now that there's Google Earth and other satellites?
Well, this, the only thing with this is this coordinates with our GIS program. So yes, you do have Google, but you also, with it tying in with our GIS website, able to do things as far as, you know, locating property lines, information comes through on the maps, where if you just click on Google, see a house and a driveway and no property lines. So this is a very expensive thing to have this aerial photography done or ortho imagery done. Close to $100,000. We've never had a budget before. So if we can piggyback and offer Warren County, it would go from what I'm calling Durkeetown Road, which is County Route 46 down in Fort Edward, all the way to the eastern Fort Edward border, all the way up to Fort Ann to the Hadlock north of 149 area. So we are getting for free some very good layers.
Laura, if I can continue. So we're not doing aerial photography of the entire county?
We are not doing anything. Warren County is doing an update, and we are able to facilitate off from their what they're paying for us to get some aerial photography. We're not paying, Washington County's not paying for anything. This is all through Warren County.
How old is the aerial photography data that you're currently using?
17, well, we did have some 19 in some areas through ITS, which is New York State. Some areas is back to 17. So, you know, we're due for some more layers. And yeah, like you said, you can go into Google, you can link off from Google or Bing off from our website and look at the Google pictures too. But that covers it.
I got a follow-up to, you know, so just in regards to planes flying over now and doing aerial photos, it's more drone footage now, utilizing. You know, so I don't know if that's what Warren County is using, but I would imagine that's what we're doing now at the for the mall properties, no longer fly over, we use drones.
questions for Laura on this? Dan?
Yeah, Laura, with the 6 towns doing the reval, is there any plans to give any extra training or special training to the grievance board on how they should handle things?
Yes, we are doing our annual Board of Assessment Review training for all new or reappointed members. And we will also be doing training for the 6 towns, and all of the assessors have been made aware of that. Anybody that sits on the Board of Assessment Review in those 6 towns, we will be having a meeting from 5 to 6 with those 6 towns members. It will be either virtual or they can go to ACC for our joint training. I think it's April 20th or 22nd. Yeah. So they'll all be getting notices in the mail next week. Or after April 1st. So it'll probably be, they'll go out April 4th of the training.
Thank you.
Anything else, Laura?
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you. Stephanie, I see you're on there. You're up.
Good morning, everyone. We are doing our next step in our grant, and what I am asking for is $15,581 to be transferred from my point 2 to the point 4 for the software. The money's there. There's no change in my budget at all. I just need the money transferred from a point 2 to a point 4.
Chair, so moved.
Moved by Daryl. Do I have a second? Seconded by Tim. Any further questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Do you have anything else, Stephanie?
Nope, that's it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I have something for Stephanie.
Oh, Dana Half has a question for you.
Are you still there, Stephanie?
I am, Dana.
Stephanie, your 2021 annual report, there was 4 of these in my mailbox, so I guess somebody really wanted me to read it. So I have. Something kind of stuck out to me as an anomaly, and this is not accusing anybody of anything, but underneath the staff page, you have 15 staff, all female. I mean, if we had a department with 15 staff that were all males, I would be asking the same question. Do no men want to work in your department? Why is it 15, which is a lot of people, 100% female? Comment on that?
That's a good question, Dana. We did have one gentleman, his name was John, who worked for us for over a year, and he transferred to Albany to a different job. We also had a gentleman that was supposed to start a couple months ago, and the day before his start date here, he notified me that he took a job with social services because they paid more than DMV employees. They are the only 2 individuals since I have been in office, or even been with the county, which has been for 17 years, that have even applied for the positions here.
I wonder why that is. It just stands out as being odd. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
All right.
Everybody have a good day.
You're up, Matt.
Hey, so I just got a few updates this month. Start with, rooftop HVAC units are gonna be scheduled to be installed next month. So in April, I just got the schedule from contractors. Town of Fort Ann and Washington County shared building we talked about last month. We had the presentation over in, Fort Ann for the town. All went well. They made a resolution to go forward. I think Thursday, it'll go out for public, proposal for, engineering. So we had already talked about that, but just giving you the timeline. So probably, I think the way it's gonna work is it's gonna go out
Thursday, should be out approximately a month, then it'll come back. We may have to do, because it's gonna miss the next, government audit. I don't wanna shorten it up and get less response because we got it out last time. It may be something where we did like last time, we did something with DPW at the beginning to go over them. It will be in time for the town of Fort Ann board meeting. So we'll present that over there again to Sam's board and see how that goes. So we'll have a cost on the engineering at that point. That's just the update of where that one is. Middle Falls, DPW, still in negotiations with a property with the owner next door, about buying that 3/4 of an acre. Where I am with that right now is, after last government ops, we missed the deadline for the planning board to get onto the agenda for this month. So I'll have all the information and be on, the town of Easton's, agenda for next month. Basically, it's the second Tuesday, you have to have all your stuff in for the fourth Tuesday, is the meeting that week. So we'll have that ready, and they'll tell us if we need to survey all of hers and all of ours and what we want, or just what we're buying. Ours is already surveyed, so we don't have to do that, but her property hasn't been surveyed, so that'll be up to the planning board. They'll tell us when we put the application in.
Dana Hess?
Maybe I missed something, but have we made a decision that that's the route we want to go to enlarge that barn?
This is what,
We kind of wanted to go somewhere else, maybe.
we talked about this, and then through our meetings and resolutions, yeah, we moved forward with this property, and this was the route we're gonna go.
I know that the
We had looked at
cost
the
of the
other
land was very, very expensive, and we weren't sure it was more economical if we go somewhere else.
Right, we researched, two other properties that were both kind of no-starters due to the location of them. This was what we had gone on, and this is the direction that I received forward with. So that's my two updates right now, that's where we're working. Nothing exciting. Next month, we'll have all sorts of information.
Anybody else have any other questions for Matt? Yeah. So next up on the agenda is a committee meeting discussion. So Mr. O'Brien brought it to Melissa's attention that he said that he felt that we needed to look at having the classroom being our new meeting room. There were some concerns. One of the concerns was that people couldn't see each other face to face. One of the concerns was people were looking at the back of each other's head. And the third concern was the sound. Now, sound is on Terry's radar. It is something she's looking forward, and that's an upgrade that's gonna happen into this room, whether we continue to meet here or not. That was already on her plan. We had a meeting last Tuesday. It was with Dave O'Brien, Melissa, myself, Debbie Prohoda, Terry McNall, and Tim Hardy, all of the people that would be instrumental in setting up a room or tearing down a room. There were several concerns raised and pros and cons for going either direction. I guess the quickest thing we'll do is, last week, Tim Hardy and Terry and their crew set up the other room, the classroom, so you could see how it would look, and took some pictures. So, Tim will do that, show you that first, so you can see how it would look if we were set up in the classroom. If you're ready to do that anytime, Tim?
Yep. I'll share my screen here. So we went down to, after that discussion, we went down and kind of put together basically a demo of that committee room as it would be with the potential setup down there. So we've just included some pictures as you can see that. So we did it in a T-shape. So the committee members, there's a total of 10 chairs on the middle or the base of the T that you can see, which faces the large-scale display there, which would allow for the largest committee to have 10 members and the chair of the committee to sit at the top of the T along with the county administrator, county attorney, the clerk, and the department or any other representatives there that need to be represented. We put some additional chairs over on the right-hand side of that room that you can see for supervisors that weren't on the committee, and then some additional seating on the left-hand side for other department heads, members of the public, or anything like that. So relative to the room itself, the capacity of the room is certainly capable of handling anything as far as any committee goes, and enough seating for non-committee members, other additional personnel that would attend, as well as members of the public. The technology in that room is set up very well for a small meeting. So it's equipped with a large display, it's equipped with a large camera, speaker system, and microphone for that room, which allows for remote two-way meetings and conferences. And then in addition to that sample committee setup, obviously it will allow for any of that based on that. There were some noteworthy items. We basically did a demo meeting in there. We brought in some other staff members, in addition to those folks that Supervisor Fedler mentioned, and just tested it out. So the video or audio there is definitely better with smaller groups. Some of the things that other items of concern, just for you to weigh in as you look at that, is the video of the room is very small scale. So as you can see in that bottom left-hand corner of that slide, that's what you would see if you're looking at that room. It's very difficult to make out faces unless you know exactly who you're looking at. The bigger concern becomes with the audio. As you know, in much of your meetings, if any more than one person is talking, or you have any quiet talkers, it becomes very difficult to hear any parts of an entire conversation. The other part is, if you're closer to the microphone, it's very sensitive. So if you're having a side conversation, that may be very apt to go out in the middle of the meeting as well. So the room is definitely capable of it. It just really is all in what the goal of moving there would be.
Okay, some of the concerns that were brought up is this is going to require a lot of work on the staff that's already busy to set that room up and tear that room down. For the concerns of you can't see each other's faces, it's more than suitable. You can see everybody right here. Looking over the back of somebody's head, every supervisor can be sitting here and you're not looking at the back of any supervisor's head, whereas you were in the old setup. Debbie's made signs in here, so anybody who is running the meeting, it's very easy to tell who the committee members are here. If we're all set up, and I'm also reading Melissa's notes as well as some that I had. It would be harder to tell if you had all of the supervisors sitting at the table, who was who and which. And again, when you put the non-committee members around the room, then we're back to the same thing where people are behind you. Also, you can't see the people specifically, as Tim said, so that would be very hard. For the Zoom, once you started having more than one person, or if you had a large group presenting from afar, that Zoom picture only had 4 people, but correct me if I'm wrong, everybody that would be zooming in would be showing on that one screen. And I think it would be difficult, depending on where you were sitting in the room, on whether or not you could see the screen well. Tim?
Was this conversation brought about because the open meetings law was coming to an end?
No, it was brought up, Mr. O'Brien was concerned that this wasn't, that he thought that would be a better site than in here. We had an hour's conversation over it. An additional concern is that room is used constantly, but this room sits all the time. And in a building where we're constantly looking for office space and places for staff to work and be able to meet, it seems like we're underutilizing this room. So even though there were concerns and questions, I think they were all addressed. And my opinion was this was still the better room to be, but that's just my opinion. Dana?
I disagree. For example, right now in this room, yes, we can see everybody's image on the full Zoom page, but Bob Hankey is so far away, he might as well be Zooming. And the advantage pre-COVID, when we used to meet in the small room adjoining this one, is we would pass papers back and forth across the table and talk to each other. I think that's what's missing, is a smaller congregation. This is so large, so open, so spacious, that really doesn't work that way. And that's what I've been hearing a lot, and what people miss is the way it was before, when we could converse and pass papers back and forth. In that classroom, I see it's kind of set up where we could regain that, continue continued meeting like this, to me, is rather sterile.
I think based on that, if I understood Tim correctly, that these quieter conversations to the side are gonna overpower the rest of the meeting going on in the room.
Well, that's
Because
discipline
it's
and
gonna-
education that we can do amongst ourselves.
So really more, it's the conversations after the meeting that you're more looking for, because if they were taking place during the meeting, they would be disruptive to this new to the sound system down there. I'm not saying yes or no either way, I'm just clarifying.
Well, can the sound system be improved with drop mics? The way that table is set up, it seems like it's just one microphone somewhere in the room. But I've seen other rooms in various other entities where they have drop microphones down and you can have more clarity in the audio. Roger's over his fingers like it's gonna cost money, but buildings and grounds, they revamp rooms in this campus all the time.
But this room wouldn't be just for us. It's utilized by many departments on a regular basis. So you can't just tweak it like maybe the smaller room back here was strictly for the supervisors and it to be our room, because that we have to be conscious of that and aware of that other people and other groups are constantly using the room. So it's a complete setup and a complete tear down every time we would go in there.
So I say, so what? If there's a will, there's a way. If you don't have the will to do it, then you can argue all day long. I could argue all day long opposing it, but it can be done.
Brian?
So, honestly, I prefer the small room myself. I don't know if anybody still is opposed to that. I don't know why we're just not going back there. That's just, to me, it's a case for how much money do we want to spend. If we're gonna do something, this is the most expensive real estate in this building. If where we're sitting, why aren't we utilizing it? And what kind of message are we sending to all these departments that we're gonna have empty space everywhere, and we're telling you that we got no rooms for you? I don't know. I don't know where the answer lies. I don't see where that was a problem. Yeah, COVID comes along every year or something like it. Maybe that's a little close quarters, but other than that, like Dana said, it was nice to hand stuff back and forth across the table, and it was more like you were sitting at a meeting table having a conversation, and you could get more things worked out. I kind of like that. The further we put them across, all I can picture is Putin sitting at the end of the table and everybody's 500 feet down the alley. I mean, I don't think that's what we want to do. I think if we'd be a little closer board if we actually sat at the table and worked together and talked together. And I don't see a reason to spend a whole lot of money in another room when we know we have to spend money in here to fix this sound system, and it's the most expensive real estate in the building.
So, I agree. I would like to get back to a more smaller setting. Before a supervisor coming in and being in those meetings and sitting on the outside, you get to hear, when you're trying to be involved as a constituent, you get to hear what the supervisors are talking about. And I agree that I don't feel like you're getting all that in our committee meetings now. But with the open meetings law extension, I feel like, if that ends in April, then, why do we need to go into there? Why can't we just go back into here? And, I'm still concerned on what's going to happen with the open meetings law in regards to Zoom meetings, And at this stage, we have 5 by 5. We have 25 people on the screen right now. If the open meeting law goes away and then committee members are back in here and we have 4 people, smaller group up on a Zoom, okay, that's fine. Let's adequate that room and get back into there. I would, let's put a timeline here, not make a quick decision. I'm not on the committee, so I'm just putting my 2 cents in. But, I would ask to get back in there maybe by May, and maybe, if the open meetings law ends in April, then we're back to just, a transition, is what I'm kind of looking at, as opposed to just like cut, boom, let's go. And I don't want to spend any more money than we need to have to spend, so.
That's true, and I missed that part on it. You can't, there's no cameras, there's no laptops in front of any of the participants when we go down to that room. So if Zoom is still an option, then that's an additional handicap. You can only see that one overall picture. And like Jim said, if you want to get out of this room and it's not COVID, then why don't we use our own real estate instead of moving down to another room just because? We already have rooms dedicated to us. We have a room here. It seems like there's 2 rooms not being utilized in the building when there are rooms that are being used. So why are we making people bend over backwards to, you know, make room for us? Yes, Jim?
Is there any supervisors that are opposed to going back into our classroom?
Always push for it.
Dana?
That small classroom has, what, 4 large TV screens in there? Could we go in that small classroom and still do some kind of a Zoom thing? Couldn't we do it all in that small room?
Do you have any opinion on that, Tim, since you're our Zoom guy?
So we would just have to work with Terry to put in a camera and a speaker and mic in there. That's the only thing that's lacking in there right now.
And that's not that hard to do, right? That's a pretty...
Correct.
And we already have the camera and the microphones, right? So
we would have to procure the camera and the microphone for that.
Okay.
So the classroom out here was outfitted. We talked about early on, doing that one as well.
Dan Shaw?
Yeah, question for Roger. I'm always confused about this open meetings law and the Zoom issue. Do we have to do that, or could we choose not to do it? And just go back to what we used to do?
All right.
What's the actual requirement here?
It's gonna be probably a longer conversation than you wanna have. So, let's say this was not COVID,
Right.
okay? Stick with me, because I'm losing my voice. Any member already had the ability to attend a meeting remotely, according to the law. We just never provided it.
Okay.
Okay? But you could always attend remotely, excuse me, as long as where you were attending from was noticed and was a publicly accessible place, so the public could also attend at the place you were attending. So if the extension goes away in April and nothing else happens, and there's a lot of possibilities perking around out there, but right now, if nothing else happens, and you want to attend by Zoom, and you want to go to the Easton Town Hall and say, Debbie, I'll be attending from the Easton Town Hall, put it in the notice, you can do that. And there's not a darn thing any of the rest of you can do about that.
But that wasn't my question. I'm sorry, maybe I didn't know it right.
So,
Do we have to provide that service?
yes, you got to figure,
Okay.
how are they going to get into the meeting, right?
That's what Roger was saying.
Right.
Pre-COVID, it was always an option. We just never
We
provided
just never
that.
provided that. If you wanted to, we could have set up a conference phone and you could have called in.
Yeah.
Right, of going through the same things, but we've now got the technology where we can do the video call. You could have teleconference. Actually, the old law talks about teleconference.
If you teleconference, could you vote if you were a committee member?
No, because you have to have visual, visual.
So with Zoom, you can't have a voting presence. Okay.
And now we're talking about members.
Right.
Right now, there's nothing about non-members.
So you could exclude non-members.
And you're not a member if you're not on the committee, parenthetically. Let's make sure we understand that.
Right.
So, yes, you only had to provide a way for members of whatever the group was, whether it's the whole board, if you're having a whole board meeting, or a committee, if you're having a committee meeting, to be able to participate remotely if they wanted to. Okay, now that's pretty well done. We've got that set up. That's easy to do. We all know how to do that. So if April 18th or 16th or whatever the day is that it happens, and nothing else happens, and I'm not convinced nothing else is going to happen, but if nothing else happens, there has to be a way for you to get in if you want to. If you don't want to, if you don't want to show up, great, then it's not an issue. But if somebody does, you have to provide that way, a member. Now, what's being discussed is the difficult part, because what's being discussed is a couple different things. One, some involving members, I'll use the elected officials, and some involving the public. So as far as the officials go, what they're talking about is giving officials the ability to attend without that requirement that it be in a public place.
Well, getting back, I'm still not clear about this. So let me ask another question.
Okay.
Before COVID, we were illegal in what we were doing?
No.
Well, you said that before COVID, we still had to provide Zoom for?
Nobody asked for it.
Nobody asked for it. And we-
No, but if they had asked for it, you had to
If
provide
any
it.
of you had asked for a teleconference or a way to attend, we would have had to provide it.
We've done that. Alan
We've done
Brown attended meetings like that.
Right.
But we did it more on courtesy than the fact that it was required. That's all I'm trying to understand.
Nobody ever raised the issue, but and we never said no. Number one, nobody asked. Number two, no, we never said no when somebody asked. So it was never an issue about whether we were going to or not going to. Because if you said to me, do we have to do that? I would have said, sure. You do.
Roger, under your scenario, if I say I'm gonna attend from home, I have to open the front door, let anybody in that wants to see me.
Yep.
Or
That
you
is,
go to your town hall.
that is the scenario.
Right, but, well, like right now, I have internet at my house, I go to the town hall.
That's the current law. You have to advertise where you are, and the public has to be able to
And
access.
so anybody attending on vacation, if they're in Timbuktu,
If they're in
they have to
Timbuktu,
allow
hopefully
anybody
they're-
else that's in Timbuktu in the door.
they're in the public part of Timbuktu.
Wow.
All right, so that's the way it's always been. The technology really hadn't, remember, we made because the world in general, has made great technological leaps into making this kind of stuff happen a lot more easily. You know, Zoom wasn't around, you didn't have an easily accessible platform, you know, YouTube wasn't around as much, so you didn't have the means and methodology to do that. It was much, much more complicated to do. Now it's easier to do, so it would never have occurred, it might have occurred to you to call in and do a conference call, but a video call was something that was relatively difficult even several years ago. And now has been, because of COVID, been something that we can easily do. So if nothing else happens, again, which I'm not convinced is going to be the case, then that's where we sit, come April, whatever it is. And I'm betting since legislation takes a while to happen, for a while, that's where we'll be unless it gets extended again. However, the proposals out there deal into two different things. One is for the members of the organization to attend a meeting. And the most prevalent thought seems to be that we're going to lift that requirement that you do it in a public place. Provided that, now we go on to the public part of it, the public has a way to both observe and participate. And sometimes that term participate and observe are used interchangeably in the discussion. So remembering that when you have a public meeting, the public has the right to attend, but the public does not have a right to comment unless you specifically provide that, or it's a public hearing, which is the whole point of it, is to get public comment on what you're doing. The new law seems to be saying that there has to be, at a minimum, a right for observation of what you're doing, and it sounds like they're going to make it in real time rather than saying you can post a copy of the Zoom meeting or a recording of the Zoom meeting after the fact. And then the other concept is participation, and sometimes participation is used in terms, when you see it used, it's used in terms of participating in the meeting, as in I'm in the back watching and I'm participating in the meeting, and then it's used as an ability to address the meeting remotely. So the technology we have the technology to do that, we've done that, of course. That's kind of where we're probably going, but the legislation, there's 14 zillion bills out there and they all have a different idea of what they're saying. But I think at some point you're going to see a movement toward remote members and then two-way public participation. And how that's going to be accomplished and how you're going to be able to best visually do it and do it in an audio sense is going to be something that you're going to have to look at.
What am I back to the classroom, what am I missing as to why that smaller room would not work and we go to a bigger room? What am I missing? Why can't that smaller room work? Like I said, there's 4 monitors on the wall, large. We can see if you're actually present at the meeting, sitting at the table. You can see this screen right now that we have. We don't need a laptop in front of each one of us. We had meetings there before. The table was a T shape. At the head of the T was the treasurer, the county attorney, the administrator. They all had their laptops. They had a lot of room between them. And the stem of the T was rather congested. But why, what am I missing? Why do we need a large room? Is that so that we can be 6 feet apart or something?
That room requires more upgrades in terms of technology. Not a lot, like Tim said, but of the rooms we're using now, that room requires an upgrade. It's not ready to go for those future items. The room, the large classroom I'll use for lack of a better term, has the capability to do that now. This room does through the setup you're using now. That room would require a couple upgrades. That's the only difference.
Okay, because I think the larger room, when I look at the display that Tim had, and the one screen, and the way the camera is looking, I don't think that was an attractive alternative. That smaller room, the cameras would be closer to you, the people sitting at the table. I think you'd have better quality of the video aspect of it.
Your hot seat in the small room for reference purposes, which was part of the problem with the big room. We put the person at the bottom, the base of the T, we called it the hot seat where the department head went. Because there's one camera in that room, all you get was the back of the head of the person presenting. So so we were going to that's why we had extra seats at the top of the T to put the department head there so that everybody had a face on, wearing attention to the camera. You'd have to do something similar to that here as well. Because otherwise you'd be looking, if you put a camera at either end, you'd be looking at either the back of the top of the T or the back of the person doing the presentation. So you'd have to do some upgrades to the technology. But that's really the only difference between the large classroom and
my preference, we go back to the small room.
Sam?
Cassie, I'd just like to make the comment that the small room, when that was first designed years ago, it was built, and correct me if I'm wrong, Deb, but the intent was if we had to go into executive session, we would go into executive session and it would hold the 17 supervisors and any support staff we had to have there comfortably. The fact of the matter is, when we get everybody in there, the department heads, no one from the public that may want to attend, if they want to attend an open meeting, should have to come in and sit on somebody's lap to have room to be able to participate in a meeting. Think back about how there's no empty chairs in there. When we get a department, a committee meeting that has like human services, that has 4 or 5 department heads come in for the meeting, and we have all of our supervisors that show up, there's no room in there for the public to even want to participate. They come to the door, want to come in, they look around, there's no seats. I think that we need to take a good look at this and realize that we do have a responsibility, whether to show or not show, to be prepared to facilitate the public should they decide to come in. And I just don't think there's enough room in that smaller room to do it. It wasn't designed for large groups, and we have conveniently made it that way. And for some it has worked and some it hasn't. You know, we talk about, we don't want to see the back of people's heads. Well, you know, there's always so many people that sit at the table, and the rest of us all look at the back of people's heads if we're not part of the committee that's sitting at the table. So I think that, you know, we're looking at something that we need to take a look at. How's it going to facilitate the public that may want to attend, as well as us as supervisors that are going to be here, before we make any rash decision on it.
We've exceeded the capacity of the small room several times. We've never, to my recollection, exceeded the capacity of this room or when we've used it for small classes.
But we have in the small room, correct, Roger?
Yes, we have several times we've exceeded. We've actually had to move out here. We moved here. Right, we moved here if we exceeded capacity.
So we asked our code enforcement guys to go around and enforce codes on other organizations because they've got more people in the room that should be there, and then we turn around and say we want to do it ourselves. How much sense does that make? It doesn't make any to me. I mean, maybe, you know, there's some rationale for it that I don't understand. But standards are standards. It should apply to everybody, not just to the employees or to those people out in the community, the businesses out there that we have to go out and write citations or whatever against because they're beyond where they should be. Our town halls are all posted, rooms are all posted. We need to try to stay within those, I would think.
Okay, I have Brian and then Sue and then Matt, so people don't have to keep raising their hand. Brian, you're up.
Well, so a couple things. First of all, Bob's been here a year longer than I have, or close to it. And have we moved 6 times the time you've been here?
Probably not.
I don't think we've moved 6 times.
I recall twice.
The size of the crowd.
Yeah, it's not for a while.
It's never happened very much. And it's right there. I mean, we all can move rather swiftly, whether it's public or would it?
You're gonna have to move your technology, remember that.
Well,
If the
this
technology comes
needs
to
to be
pass.
upgraded anyway.
Right.
So that way the technology is gonna be here no matter what. So I guess that's the first point is, it's very seldom that we do run over, but this is where the bulk of the real estate is. And if that room sits empty, it's hard to say you have a problem with size and we're wasting all space. I don't know how we put that across. And the other thing is, we have enough squirrels we follow there in the meeting. If there's a window, you might see a real squirrel. Whereas when you're in there, you're only looking at each other and looking at what is happening. I just think it's a better situation myself.
Sue?
Cassie, I'm trying to figure out what the attraction is to the small room. I just remember sitting in the small room, the committee room, thinking they've got to be the most uncomfortable chairs I ever sat in. And I could never, ever see the screen because the print was so small, I couldn't read it. And so I can't imagine having all of us go back in there. And in the Board of Supervisors room, we've kind of gotten used to it. I think that it's, got the ability with our Zoom. I mean, we can see each other more clearly. It's hard to pay attention, and Debbie's done a great job in doing the committee signs. Certainly we don't want Tim Hardy going up on the ladder to fix the thing on the ceiling. I mean, there's things that could be improved upon, but I don't think what we're doing is so bad. I don't know what the problem is, quite frankly.
Hicks?
So I respectfully disagree. I think we can get back into the smaller room with more intimacy, more efficiency, and it's a much more effective meeting. I can only judge by the last 10 years I've been there. When we have those meetings in that committee room, it's a much better meeting. And I agree with Bob and Brian that it's only been a handful of times we've had to exceed the capacity and come out. If we're not going to go in the classroom, let's go back to our committee room. I don't feel this is the way to do it. Roger's correct. There will be changes coming, but we can get around these things and we can make that committee room effective. I'm fully on board with getting back into a smaller room, especially the committee room, to hold our meetings. It's rare. Look at all the Zoom meetings we've had. Nobody from the public attends the Zoom meetings, which is 10 times easier than coming to the county buildings. We don't get that many public people coming to these things. And if we did have a Zoom meeting into the committee room, maybe a lot of members of the staff would Zoom in from their offices instead of having to come to the committee room, because they could attend remotely that way if there's a question or two that's being asked. So I'm on with Dana, I'm on with Brian, I'm on with Dave. Let's get back to the way we used to do things because it's much more effective.
Dan Shaw?
I'd like to add to that, for a person of my diminishing abilities of hearing, that committee room, I could always hear everybody clearly. I still struggle in this room with some speakers. And I don't blame anybody, it's just the acoustics, and nobody tends to bring the microphone down and speak close to it. I still miss a lot of the communication, and in there, I never did. And sometimes it was even more than just verbal. I mean, sometimes it was swat on the back of the head. I think Cassie's either swatted me or punched me 2 or 3 times.
No, you asked
But she
why
got
I
her
never
point
did.
across, and she didn't have to talk. It actually speeded the meeting up. So there's a lot to be said for in close quarters.
You mean the pinch under the table was, pinch 1 was vote yes, and pinch 2 was vote no?
You guys are gonna have me in timeout all the time, to make me sound like.
But anyway, that's the hearing part. That would be a better situation for me.
Bob?
I don't see some of the problems that other people are having with this room, but I understand the opting for a smaller, more intimate sort of a situation for committee meetings. Of the two, I'd have to kind of vote against the classroom. That classroom was used for so many other things. Having Matt have to go in there and stir the thing 3 times a week or more, it seems like a horrendous waste of manpower. And I don't see we gain a whole lot in there, other than if we're going to try to do our 6 feet apart, we might be able to do that, but I'm not sure. And we've still got the same problems with people looking at the back of people's heads. In fact, even more so, because they're a little farther apart in there. I think that if we tried to orient it so we had the whole committee sitting at the front table, it's hard for the chairman to figure out who's raising their hand, look down the line, and this sort of thing. If we got to go to a smaller room, I'd have to go with the committee room also. I think that's, and if something happens and turns out technologically we're under constraints that we can't do it, well, then we've got to fall back on the classroom. But I think the classroom is maybe option 3. If it were me, this would be 1, 2, and 3.
So right now, if I summarize this correctly, there's the challenge of the upgrades and technology to be implemented in this classroom behind us. How long, other than the money, how long do you think it would take to get that done?
Yeah, in working with Terry, not long. Maybe we could get a microphone and a camera in there relatively quickly. We would have to change the layout, just looking or thinking of how that room looks and how you would look at the camera. So when we looked at the other room and left it capable to be able to have the Zoom technology of somebody else participating in the meeting, everybody was looking at least at the monitor and at the camera, which was right above the monitor, and there it's a little bit different with the setup. With the top of the T, obviously the large monitor that you'd be looking at would be behind everybody running the meeting. So either we just kind of flip the room and put the camera there. We could look at that. I don't think it would take all that long to get it set up if we needed to. Though.
Matt Hicks?
Yeah, so I would propose that we table any further discussion on this until next government ops, because Roger's going to have information after, I believe it's the 15th, Roger, on when that executive order expires. At that point, we'll know the lay of the land, because we're still a little bit in no man's land, not knowing what's coming. And perhaps we could make a decision, make a motion, and make a firm commitment at April's government ops, knowing what we find out on the 15th. Does that sound reasonable, Roger?
I'm not sure you'll know by the 15th. That's my fear, just because it's going to take a while for legislation to go through. Yeah, I was kind of hoping they were going to do it in the budget, like in the old days, where you legislated everything in the budget and then you'd be done. But apparently, there's a big push to not do that this year. So we may not know. But I'll say this to you: if you want to use that thing for anything that's going to be public, my bet, I think it's an easy bet to say we're going to live streaming is what's going to have to happen. I just think that if anything's going to happen, they're going to start saying, you know what, you have to put your meetings out to the public. Now that they've seen how easy it is to do, so putting in cameras and a microphone, you might as well start that now, because anything you want to do that's going to be public, you're going to have to be able to have that capability, and those are the two things I think you need in that room to have that capability. So I would say just go ahead and do it, because if it doesn't happen by April, it's going to happen by the end of the legislative session at some point. So if it takes taking the TV and switching ends, and then putting in some cameras and microphones, I would say just go ahead and do that, because sooner or later the public streaming part of it is coming. And once that's done, I think you're okay with whatever else happens with the membership, getting them in. That's already been accomplished. So if you're going to use that room, start now, would be my recommendation.
Start with the upgrades.
Start with the upgrades, right.
Right.
Maybe not meeting there, but start with the upgrades. And then you'll be ready for whatever happens, because you'll have that capability. And it may not be that expensive. I mean, so, price it out, get it done. You could probably do it in a month. And that way you'll be ready to take advantage of it if it happens. And you'll be ready for it when I think it's inevitable that you're going to have to live stream at some point. Either live stream or record and post. Either way.
Okay, I have Brian and then Bob.
Well, if that's where we're going, I don't know why we wouldn't just change the tables in there with the plug-ins, put a laptop at every spot. You can see everybody, you'll hear them clearly, you'll see their face, they'll light up just like they do on Zoom now, and do it that way. And it would, that way, and whoever, if there's a guest in the room, they step to a laptop that's sitting there and talk, you always know who it is, because trying to make a room where you can pick out everybody, unless it's like Hollywood Squares, I don't know how else you do it. I mean, I think you gotta have a place where you can see everybody and trying to make the whole room where you can pick out who's who, you still won't know who they are unless they're labeled.
You won't get your non-committee members though who are sitting against the wall unless they got a laptop literally in their lap.
Yeah.
That's the downside of that.
Yeah.
Backbenchers don't do that.
But the committee, you already said in the committee, it's just members that need to be.
Well, if you're live streaming the meeting, they're gonna have to be able to see
When
everything.
you talk, you get up and go to the one empty.
If the Mr.
you're
Business
not
of the
committee
world in
member
this case
or-
are willing to do that, that's great.
That's what you have to do.
Yeah.
Bob?
I think we're thinking a little bit too much in terms of perfection. If we're gonna live stream a meeting, put one camera in there and let them look at that, what it is, you know. If you're looking at the back of my head, I don't really give a crap, you know, it's better than if
You
you want
can't
to.
look at the back of your head.
If you want to see it's too much shine, is that what it is? If they want to see the front of my head, show up to the meeting. You know, it's simple as that. I think if we got one camera in there and people can hear things and see what's going on, that's good enough. I don't think we ought to be jumping through a whole bunch of hoops to make sure we can see everybody's forehead. You know, it's better than it was. Just put a camera in there at the head of the room, and some people are facing it, some people aren't facing it, and they can hear people talking from the sides, and the heck with it. That's good enough.
You relocate the TV, okay, because what you want is the public, when the public comes, you want the public to be able to enter off the hallway. So I don't think you want to switch the room around to put the head of the T at the other end. So put the TV at the other end, put a camera on top of it. It'll look like the large classroom picture, just closer up because it's not as big a room.
Okay,
It wouldn't be that difficult to do. You just gonna have to do it. Get the hardware to do it. That's all.
I have Tim Hardy, then Sam, then Jim. So nobody keeps their hands up forever.
And the device that we have already equipped in the classroom down there would adequately cover this room down here just because of the size, like Roger said. The size, obviously, it's a lot smaller, so the sound and the video in there would be a lot better than it would be down there. But they have a much better chance at seeing
Sidebars in
everybody.
that room would be eminently, audible is the word I want.
Yeah.
And I know.
At that point.
Well,
No, it would take everything
It would
out.
take everything
Right,
out.
but, so they may become non-existent.
Just saying, it'll take it.
Well, because I mean, like, in this meeting today, there's just a rumble over there when those guys are talking. But in a meeting with the speakers in it, you're gonna hear everything when Dan's talking to the side, whereas now I pretty much only hear like the rumble of his voice, but.
But let's not forget.
It's not a reason to not do it.
This
No.
whole room has to be done the same way. This actual room, there's no getting around that. You can't have the committee room all set up for all that and not this room. So, what are we doing?
Okay.
This one, you gotta pay the price to do.
Sam?
Just two things. First, I was confused, Brian, about, were you talking about the laptops in the old committee room or in the proposed new committee room?
The old committee room, because you could just put the new tables that have the plug-ins right on the desk, that everyone could just plug in right in front of them. Whereas here we have.
I think we forget how much room there really is on those desks. If we can put laptops on each position around there for the committee members and then have their papers and other things spread out, there's not a lot of room there for them to negotiate. That's number one. Number two, Bob made the comment about if people want to show up or something, then let them come. And that's fine. And that's exactly my point. How are they going to get in if they want to come? There's no room in the small room to put anybody outside the people that are already here. That's the issue I have with it. We're not going to be able to do that. And if we have some people that are handicapped accessible that want to come and get in there, then we have an even further problem because that takes up a little more room for them to get around and maneuver. And they need to have a place where they can get in and out as well. And I think we have to take a look at the full picture, not just something that may serve our needs as we used to have it. And we need to be a little more progressive on that portion of what we're trying to do here and do it right the first time. Not have people show up and then say, oh, we got to move rooms because we can't get you all in here. Or have people walk away because you don't feel that they're welcome. I think that, we need to take that in. I think we got to get us molded up. Let's get back. We were in a smaller group so we can rub elbows. That's just my thought on it.
Sam, and that's a great point in regards to, ADA compliance. So, that's definitely something to look at. I agree with Bob, Supervisor Hankey. Less is more, put a camera up, get a microphone in there. Don't need to have a laptop in front of everybody. We're over accommodating the public when, we're no longer going to be in a pandemic, and, some would argue that we're not in a pandemic now anyway, but we're going to get past this, and we're making it easier for the public to engage from a Zoom standpoint. I'm sure if they had a situation where they, couldn't be there, they'll make it clear to whoever the chair is for that committee that they really want to get a point across, and that we could accommodate that. But looking to accommodate that every single month, I think is overproductive. And we could keep it simple. Keep it simple, minimum in terms of expenditure. And if that means you got to put a camera and a microphone in all three of these rooms, I don't think the cost of that is going to be outrageous. I think that would certainly suffice to, if we wanted to be in the smaller committee meeting room, or if we wanted to be in the classroom, I would be apt to just spend the money on the microphone and cameras and put them in all three locations. And you have options.
Al, there's a pop-up on my screen, so all I see is like from here up on here. Sorry.
You were part of the team that went and looked at the bigger classroom. Did you find that a viable option if you didn't have to set it up and take it down every time? So my question is, if that room could be just a committee room and not a classroom, did that present a more viable option for you?
I wasn't in that. I was on
Okay.
they did that on a separate day. I would have to
Because
have
it is
Deb or
a
Tim.
little bit larger. What
Right.
I'm hearing is one of the hindrances was having to set up and take down every time. If that room could stay set up as a committee room and the classroom was something different, does that present a viable option? Because I've talked to Matt a few times about.
Nobody's asked me about the setup, takedown.
Yeah.
That's like 5 minutes.
It's tables and chairs, that's the only thing.
That's like 5 minutes, nobody's
But I
asked.
mean, if you wanted to permanently set up a committee room that was a little bit larger than this one, I've talked to Matt a few times about some of the real estate that I feel guilty about owning right now. And if you were to put up another wall at where my vault begins, you literally, because there's the door into my back of my office. If you were to put a wall at my vault, you have a whole other. You could literally have a classroom. The classroom could be built by just putting one wall at my vault, and that committee room could be a committee room forever. And it takes all the traffic out of Deb's office too, because that's got to be a little bit of a distraction when there's committee meetings and her staff's time and stuff too. But I didn't know if by throwing a wall in where my vault is and creating a classroom with some of the real estate that I have, and leaving the bigger room as a permanent committee room, if that offered any options.
I'm gonna go down.
Understood.
So, today, yeah, that's what's bigger.
It just seems,
We could talk all day.
on that, my only opinion on that is, we're not here every single day, and it seems like bending over backward to create a new room for us when we ask staff to accommodate themselves and work in whatever space we have, and now we're asking for a new room when we have two options that might not be ideal, but that's something we could pick from without asking Matt and his staff to create another new room for us. It's only gonna be used 6 days a month, or 14 hours a month, et cetera. I don't know. I just have a problem with that when I know that there's office and staff and employees that are squished and crammed, where if we're gonna start rearranging, we could probably, like Matt said, we don't wanna get into that today. But, so going back to what Matt Hicks said about tabling this for another month and waiting, this has worked. This setup has worked for a year and a half, 2 years. I don't see why we don't just take the recommendation and write it out for another couple months to the state, decide what the exact legislation is gonna be, and then we make a decision from that. I think we're kinda in the what if, how about, maybe stage right now, and until the state really decides what they're doing and what our rules to comply by are gonna be, I would say, why don't we just stay where we are and deal with what we're doing? Tim?
I agree with Matt, I think we should table it.
Matt?
My point was to table it until we get the decision, but basically at next month's meeting, make the decision. Don't table it indefinitely. We'll get an idea next month where things stand. Roger will have an idea. He'll advise us, but it's our decision on what we do and how we do it. Next month's meeting, let's make a decision as a committee to move forward to make a change if that's what we're going to do. Let's put it, as Dana said, let's have a deadline, because if there aren't deadlines, nothing gets decided, nothing gets done. Isn't that right, Dana?
Well, I'm gonna make
But
a
there is
different.
no motion on the floor, there is no need to table, just don't make a motion.
I would make another suggestion is that actually maybe wait until May, because in May, Roger will have more information, and maybe we should bring the discussion back around in May after the state's had more time, because he says there's a timetable concern for making the April meeting. So why don't we make May the decision deadline?
It's April 15th. We will meet after April 15th.
I'm not sure anything will happen by then, after April 15th when it expires, but you're right, we will meet after the expiration date, just like we would have this time if they hadn't extended it.
And there could possibly be another extension.
And there could possibly be, I can't tell you what the future holds, but I can tell you that almost every single bill I read that's been introduced has talked about the live streaming out, and then good 75% of them talk about the public being able to participate remotely coming in as well. So this room allows you to do all that now with nothing. If you want to use the other room, I think allows you to do that with nothing. If you want to even consider the small room, the big room allows you to do that now with nothing. If you want to consider the small room, I say do the technology now, because it's good money that's going to be required at some point. Whether you'll know that by the end of April, I don't know.
How about we put it on the agenda for April, and if there isn't enough information at the time, we'll move it ahead to May, but we'll keep it on the agenda until something's decided. That work for everybody? Okay. Matt?
I just gonna put the request in soon. If you don't use the small room, can they have it? Well, I'm not gonna use it.
Debbie's not giving it up. Debbie says no. Unless you soundproof it.
I walk really carefully past Debbie's.
I was asking, I'll put in the request ahead of time. That's the problem, the more things we build, the less room we have.
How about we we'll for the next meeting, we'll price out the upgrades to that room, so at least you'll have a number.
The office is placed here.
You haven't had one.
You'll know what we're talking about, whether we're talking about hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars, or whatever. You'll at least have an idea what that is.
Okay, moving on. I see Tom is on from Board of Elections. Did you just attend the meeting so you could hear all this, or did you have something you wanted to add in other today? He's gonna stay muted. We know he went to sleep during us. Okay, does anybody else have any other to come before the Government Ops Committee today? Seeing none, we're adjourned.